Is the camera on? I think you can see me okay. Oh God, this feels like I'm introducing myself for the very first time. This isn't easy for me to talk about. And in fact, for a long time, I avoided sharing this side of myself because I didn't want to be seen as broken or fragile. But the truth is, I have carried a huge weight on my shoulders for a long time now, and I feel that we know each other well enough that I can finally share that side of myself with you guys. In November 2014, I was diagnosed with PTSD and emotional eating after a really traumatic event in my life. But after looking back at that moment in time, I can see now that the trauma didn't begin, continue or stop just there. I would actually say it began a lot earlier than what I originally thought. An event took place that I still can't quite believe happened to me. So many of you know me as the guy with the happy family, but that wasn't always the case. My stepfather has been in my world since I was 4 years old, but I actually have a biological father that left my world when I was 5. And I'm going to discuss that reason with you right now. I have hid this for many years, not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But the truth is, I only was hurting my own feelings by hiding this. My parents split up when I was 2. I had weekend visits with my biological father up to the age of 4. This weekend was like no other. I said goodbye to my parents and we headed up, myself and my father. I'm going to refer to him as that for this video because it will be easier for you guys to follow the story that way. We headed up to London, which was where he lived, and we arrived at a townhouse that I wasn't familiar with, and a townhouse that my mum had no idea about. This house belonged to my father's girlfriend, who, again, my mum had no idea about. I was 4 years old. As I walked into this townhouse, I can still vision it to this moment. This is my earliest memory. Annoyingly, sadly, my father's girlfriend had a son called Eddie. He was also with her on this weekend. Eddie was in his 40s, I would say. I can't remember the in-between bit, but I do remember being put to bed on the top floor. My father then came in. I remember being in this bed, the doorway right in front of me, and he came in and said he's heading out. Him and Bernadette. Eddie was watching me for the night. I had never met Eddie before. Eddie walked into the room and said, "Let's go to the kitchen." I remember walking down a couple of flights of stairs to the kitchen. I was lifted up onto the kitchen counter, and something happened that I'm not going to speak about here on YouTube because they won't allow it, and I don't think it's right to speak about what happened next, but you guys can probably guess. I was 4 years old. When I was dropped back home the following day, I was such a bubbly child, so bubbly, so carefree, filled with innocence. And the sad thing is, I don't remember what it feels like to be like that. I don't remember a time in my life where I didn't feel innocent. I went upstairs, straight to my room, and my mum followed me up shortly after. My mum is a gem. She's an absolute gem, and I couldn't be without her. So me and her have this really, really funny relationship that no other person, I believe, has. And I would tell her everything, and that even means that. So, of course, when she raised the question, what's wrong? And I said, you tell me off. You will tell me off. It's funny because I'm not getting upset because it happened to me. I'm getting upset because I'm now an adult that can relate myself to a child, to what they would think. And I just put myself in the position of, if I found out that happened to one of my nieces or my nephews, you know. And it's not okay. It's not okay. So I told my mum what had happened, and she went straight to the police. Now, obviously, that part in between, I don't remember that because I was kept well out of that. You get me? Unfortunately, after this occasion, that was my first experience with That was my first experience with being let down. Because unfortunately, the world was a different place back then, and things were often pushed aside. And unfortunately, the legal advice, it went to court and everything like that. But the legal advice was that it would do me harm, more harm than good. Because unfortunately, Eddie was not mentally well. So he got away with it. He got away with it. And the case was dropped. I feel like from that moment on, I felt different. I felt different, but I never related it back to that moment. I think maybe I blocked it out. And I would say to you that it didn't affect me, but it clearly has. But not to the point where it's affected my life, because I've always pushed on, pushed forward. Because that's what I want for me. So, I need a drink of Pepsi. So, from that moment on, my visits with my dad, my father, were supervised because he couldn't be trusted to have me alone. Thank God. What I will say is that I clearly knew something was wrong because it wasn't long before I said, I don't want to see you again. And I can remember, I must have been 5 at this time, I remember thinking, and this is such a mature thought for such a young age, I remember thinking, I just want to be part of my new life with my mum and my stepdad and my sister and my brother. And I don't want the baggage of that dragging me down. So I said goodbye. I said goodbye. Ugh. Okay, so fast forward to school age. I had an amazing primary school time. I can't remember bad memories from that at all. Secondary school hits. Now, by this time, unfortunately, I had used eating and secret eating as a coping mechanism. Up until the point of the first trauma I experienced, my mum struggled to get me to eat, truthfully, which I know looking at me now is a crazy thought. But after that, I clearly found safety in food. And I would use that as a form of coping whenever I felt alone. Now, I am from a big family, and I've never been alone, but you could be in a crowded room and feel alone. And I've felt that many times. You could be in a crowded room and you feel like you're screaming at the top of your lungs, but no one is listening. But nothing is coming out. But as long as I had food, I had that best friend. That best friend that could offer me something that no one or nothing else could. So, on that first week of secondary school, unfortunately, kids are cruel. They're very cruel. And the comments flew in about my weight. And I knew my weight was terrible. I knew that. But it doesn't make it easier hearing it from someone else, does it? Now, these comments that were thrown around were not just from school bullies, they were from friends and people that I thought had my back. I was punched in the face in the first week of secondary school because I spoke a different way to everyone else. Because I looked different to everyone else. And because I had a heart that was different to everyone else. I feel so strongly about bullying, whether that be online bullying, workplace bullying, or school bullying. It's disgusting. But what I will say to those people that have experienced that is, it's their problem, not yours. It's them, not you. Bullying didn't stop there. Then I had to work out my own identity. what I wanted for my life, who I wanted in my life. And it seemed like those around me had decided that before I'd decided that myself. And more comments flew in. And I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed at who I was. I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed at the way I looked, about what I felt. As if I didn't feel abnormal enough. I felt weird. I felt like everyone else was normal but me. But the problem is, I wasn't asking those loved ones around me whether I was wrong. But do you know the sad and incredible thing? I actually loved school, regardless of that. I loved it. I loved it. I didn't want to leave. When I was 17 years old, I decided to go on a health kick. It felt like a weight had dropped from my shoulders after all of these years. Weirdly, I felt like a version of me I hadn't felt ever. I lost 6 stone. I exercised 5 times a week and I ate very well. And the weight was dropping off. And at the age of 17, when you've always been a big lad, that drew attention. And with that attention, you feel something you've never felt before. And that was confident. I felt confident. Before that, I used, you guys have watched my videos. I used my personality as a confidence thing. And that worked, but I never felt confident in the way that I looked. I didn't. But for the first time ever, I did. I really did. I felt great. And looking back, what a sad thing. What a really sad thing that I was giving others who didn't want to give me the time of day beforehand. I was giving them more than I should have. I was giving them time they didn't deserve because they only wanted to know me because I'd lost weight. So it's kind of toxic. It's really toxic. I had shared that first part of me with the world that I had hidden away. And I shortly, not long after that, met Ash, who came into my life and showed me a world that I never knew existed. At the end of 2013, I remember thinking this upcoming year is going to be the best year of my life. 2014 came. It was February. It was a few days before Ash's birthday. It was like any other day. And I was 5 minutes from my house. I was originally going into town with my sister, Kate. But she was taking too long or something like that, and I messaged her to say, I'm going to go now. I don't want to wait. I'm going to go early. As I got to the top of the road, there was a hotel on the left. It's not there now. And in front of that hotel is a blind bend. You can't see around it. I remember seeing, as I went round the corner, I remember seeing a car come round the corner at the like I could see it in the corner of my eye vision. And then the next thing I remember was a force hit me, and I went straight into the wall in front of me. It had knocked me that far. I remember falling to the ground on my hands and knees, and a voice behind me of saying, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I remember being in total shock and saying, "I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine." I very clearly wasn't fine. I had blood pouring from my face, my mouth, my teeth were broken. These 2 teeth are fake, not for vanity reasons, but because of that event. I had serious head injuries, and that person decided to leave. They left me there. So I managed to dial my mum's number. It's the only number that I know without going through my phone book. And I called her and I told her that I'd been knocked over. I'd managed to tell her where I was and that I wasn't okay. And then when I put that phone down, I remember drifting in and out. I couldn't lift my head up anymore, and I just lay on the floor. And the only person that stopped to help me, to see if I was okay, was a schoolboy. I still find that extremely hard to believe, because we are too wrapped up in our own lives sometimes to ever look at who needs help. And it's easier to just drive by. And I just laid there on my own with this schoolboy, strangely enough a schoolboy that went to the school that I was bullied at, holding my arm and making sure I was okay. And then my mum turned up. I remember that still to this day, her pulling up in her car directly in front of me, jumping out and saying, "Oh my God, darling, are you okay?" The event doesn't affect me. But it affects me when people around me are hurt. And that is why a lot of the time I say that nothing's like... It's funny because, not funny, ha-ha, but the event itself doesn't affect me. It's what those people around me felt at the time. Because I've got a personality that wants to make sure that everyone else is okay before I am. But unfortunately, that can lead you into difficult situations where you forget how you feel and what you need. My mum came in the ambulance with me. We headed up to King's College Hospital. I remember drifting in and out of that journey. I think I said, "Has anyone told Ash? Has anyone told Ash?" And my mum said, "Yeah, Ash is on his way with Kate." I remember drifting in and out during that journey, and then going through the double doors of A&E at King's College in London. And that's all I remember until I'm laying there in a bed and I wake up and I've got Kate, my sister, to the left of me. Ash was there as well. My dad was there. And I think I said, thank you for being here. Oh, I knew this would be hard. So they then transported me to my own room. There was 2 beds in there, but there was only me in there, which was nice. I think there was a telly there in front. And I was to like the right of the room, not that that matters, but I'm trying to build a vision of what you can see, and to the left of me was a view of London. And when everyone had gone, like all my family because of visiting times, I remember looking out that window and thinking, I can't believe what's happened. Like, I was meant to be there tomorrow. And I just couldn't believe what had happened. You know, I couldn't remember what day of the week it was. That was a really scary thing, not knowing what day it is. Like, really trying in your mind to know what day of the week it is. I remember asking the nurses constantly, can I go home? Please, can I go home? No, not tonight, not tonight. Oh, but when? And they were like, no, you're not ready. You're not and the worst part about that night was it was about midnight and they brought in someone to share that room with me. And that person was a drink driver that they brought in. I mean, come on. I've just been involved in a hit and run accident and you've brought in a drink driver to share my room with me. That still amazes me to this day. It really does. Things started to get back to normal for everyone else. But sadly, in the months that followed that accident, they were really crucial for me because I didn't go back to normal. Things only got worse for me. And as much as I tried to bury them like I always did, they were digging themselves back up. And I just couldn't bury them fast enough. That's the only thing I can think of how to describe the feelings that I felt. I was pushing them down, but they were pushing back up as far, and then there'd be another one come up this way, and I'd be trying to hold everything down. And in November 2014, it felt like my world came crashing down. After that accident, the police gave me an interview where I'd shared what I knew. I mean, I've got this up for you guys. I still have, that was where it happened, I still have the article on my phone to this day and I can't get rid of it. There's a part of me that doesn't want to let go of that yet. Because although it was such a traumatic time for me, it was still the moment where my life changed forever. And I don't feel ready to delete that part because that is part of the reason that I'm here right now. Yeah, I mean, police seek witnesses over mystery of man, 21. I was 21, discovered with serious head injuries. Yeah. And unfortunately nobody came forward. Nobody, not one. Even though it was at 8:10 on a weekday morning, and that road is the main road that leads into our local town. It's a road that since I've drove, have been stuck on many occasions, saying, oh, why won't this traffic move? So it really amazes me that there wasn't one person that saw what happened. So I guess that was just another person that sadly wronged me in my life that got away with it. And when I talk about people getting away with things, I'm not talking about seeking revenge or anything like that. I'm talking about an apology, an explanation as to why, you know? Yeah. In November 2014, I went to the doctors. I told him how I felt, and I was prescribed antidepressants and sent on my way. I took those for, I'm going to say 4 months, maybe 5 months. And they did help, but not in a way that I ever wanted them to. I began to not care about anything. I was a version of myself that isn't me. And that isn't what I wanted them to do. I didn't want them to mask who I was. I actually quite like my personality, and I like who I am. So I didn't like them changing that. So I decided to stop taking them. I quit my job that I was at, and I really wanted a fresh start. I needed to build myself back up my way. Over the course of the next 6 years, we're talking from 2015 to 2021, I worked on what Jack wanted. What did Jack like? What did he love? And it turns out that Jack didn't love a lot of the things that he thought he did in those earlier years, and he missed a lot of what he'd left behind in his childhood. So I started to become more creative again. I started to do more wholesome, homely things. And I really found a passion for who I was again. Until 2021 hit. It was Christmas 2020, the year that we all know for various different reasons, and I got a phone call. It wasn't on Christmas Day, I think it was Boxing Day, if my memory serves me right. And my biological dad had been taken into hospital with COVID-19. This was actually a real shock for me, because 2 weeks previous to this moment, I had reached out to him and said, let's put the past in the past. I hope you're well. He replied back, it's so lovely to hear from you, and I agree. And then I think there was a couple of messages to in and thro in, and he was in Wales at that time, and then he said, I'll message you when I'm back home. Now, he was then back home and taken into hospital before we ever got to have another conversation. He was put into a coma and he died in January of COVID. And I never got to speak to him ever again. Now, a lot may wonder, if you didn't have a relationship with him, how would that affect you so strongly? And I asked myself that same question, but what I have realised is there were a lot of unanswered questions there, and they will never get to be answered, and I'll never know what could have been. And I just find it very weird that 2 weeks before I was messaging him, after all those years. I was then funeral planning, all whilst in lockdown. All whilst not being able to see my loved ones. I was funeral planning. I was sorting through paperwork because I was his only child and there wasn't anyone else to do that. And that's a lot. That is a lot to have to deal with at the age of 29. I was 29. When I lost my father, it made me look at life a completely different way to what I had done before. I started to reevaluate a lot of things again. And I piled on a lot of weight again, which is a common theme because the emotional eating. When I was going through all of that, I was using eating as a coping mechanism again. I was eating way more than what I should, and in turn piled on more weight than I had done in many, many, many years. It's almost like self-sabotage without realising it, you know? But as I say, it's what gets me through certain situations. I eat when I'm happy and I eat when I'm sad. If there's a reason to celebrate, I'm there. Who wants a takeaway? Whether that's a good thing, I don't know. Whether that's a bad thing, I don't know. But it is what I use. It's that best friend that I will never lose. I know that. I know that. As the world started to open up again and restrictions were lifted, life looked a little brighter. And I was coming up to a milestone birthday. I was approaching 30, which is still my favourite year ever. I looked back a lot. I watched home videos. I dug out old photos. I was looking at each era of my life and I began creating a video to mark that special occasion. I collated lots of clips of me. It's actually on my YouTube channel. It's the first video I ever posted there. It's not the best, but it's a fun one. And it made me think a lot. It made me appreciate my life so far, but it made me extremely excited about the life that I was about to lead. 30, I thought, let's get all these ducks in their row before that big day arrives. And I started a health kick. I gave up smoking after 12 years, which I've still done. I'm now 3 years, no smoking, nothing, which I'm really proud of. I decided, which is where my YouTube story begins, in 2022, I decided I wanted to document my life going forward like my parents had documented my life up to the age that I was at that point, 29. So I said to Ash, please can I get this? Please can I get this? Please. And he was like, are you going to use it? And I said, yeah, I believe I'm going to use it. And he said, okay, I'll get it if you use it. Well, we know what happens from there. I had no idea where this would lead, truthfully. It was all about the memories, and it still is to this day. I still document my life for the memories, and I guess it's just grown into wanting to do it to make others happy as well, because it makes me happy. It makes me so happy. And I think that's first and foremost the most important thing about me doing this, is that it brings me a lot of joy to record and to look back at what we've done, and to have others on the journey now with us is like crazy. It's so crazy, and it makes me really, really happy. Thank you. I documented my birthday, my 30th birthday, and I was in a job that was amazing. I loved my job. I'm not going to say what that was, but it was amazing. I was so good at it. But what I started to see as I worked on myself was that there were things about that job that were not okay. And I was being bullied again in a completely different way than what I had known before. And I never thought that at 29, 30, that I'd be being bullied for being me. I really struggled with that. Really struggled with that. I actually left that job right at the start of my YouTube journey. We were only a few months in, and I decided that I needed to get out of that situation and focus on what I loved before it was too late. So 2023, I had my YouTube channel, I had you guys, but I was facing some silent battles behind the scenes, and I was trying to overcome the damage that that previous employment had given me. But this time was different. It felt different. It felt like I had a focus that I'd never had before. I had JFR.PRODUCTIONS. I had my baby. Something that I had personally built from the ground up that nobody could take away from me. And I'm talking not about how many views I get, not about how many people are subscribed to my channel, because even with all that stripped back, I will still have my memories, my content, my heart poured into what I've created. And it's just a massive bonus having you wonderful, wonderful people following that with me. I do not do this for popularity, for money, for anything other than happiness. And I hope that comes across, because this channel started out as something to mark a really great place in my life. And that's all that it is. It's a place where we can feel safe together, where we can feel happy together, and we can clutch hold of those positive moments together. So this was 2023, which led into 2024. I was having therapy throughout that year, which I know probably is crazy for you guys, because I share a lot, but I didn't want to share that part of me because, as I've mentioned in previous posts, I was scared to. I was scared to make you guys feel unhappy. And speaking of happiness, someone has just arrived that makes me very, very happy. Hey. But I've realised that we can have all of that, but I can be real too. I can be 100% real with you. And that's what's led us to today. I've actually created, because one of my friends asked me, what does stay happy mean? Like, if you were put in a dictionary under the word stay happy, what would it read? So I wrote it down because I wanted to share that with you guys right now. So, stay happy isn't about never feeling sad. It's about embracing every emotion: joy, sadness, frustration, and hope. Because happiness isn't a constant state. It's a choice we make even in difficult times. It's about finding light in the darkest moments, pushing forward when life feels heavy, and reminding yourself that no feeling is final. Stay happy means holding on to the things that bring you peace, surrounding yourselves with positivity, and never letting hardships define you. It's about resilience, about picking yourself up, about knowing that even on the darkest and hardest days, happiness is still within reach. It's not about pretending to be okay. It's about believing that in time you will be. And I think I feel so strongly about that because there have been times over the last decade that I've felt like there was no light at the end of that tunnel. But even through those dark moments that I've experienced in those 10 years, there's been so much light that has outweighed that darkness. When I was diagnosed with PTSD in 2014, when I overcame that, I thought that was it. But what I have since realised is there is no cure for it. It's something I'm going to live with for the rest of my life. And I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that. Because it's what makes me me. And those dark times they're a reminder of how great the good times are as well. Healing isn't a straight path, but I've found peace in the small things. Creating content for this channel, you guys, stay happy, sunrises, sunsets, Nala, spending time with Ash, lighting my candles and seeing the world. I'm still healing. I'm still learning to show myself the same kindness that I show others, and it's a journey. It's a journey. I have good days, I have bad days, but one thing I have learned is to not let others define your happiness. You define your happiness. Don't let anyone be in charge of that other than you, because they don't deserve it. I'm so thankful that with age comes a little bit of wisdom. Yes, darling. If parts of my story remind you of yours, please know you are not alone. You are human, and you deserve the same amount of love, peace and happiness that you bring to everyone else's life. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really appreciate it.